The three countries of the North American Free Trade Agreement sat down this week to begin in earnest the reworking of the decades-old accord. Candidate and President Donald Trump have scorned NAFTA over trade deficits and sending jobs out of the country.
NAFTA has been a horrible deal for the United States. It's been very good for Canada, it's been very good for Mexico, but it's been horrible for the United States.
The president's trade representative held firm on the strong position this week, firing an opening salvo.
For countless Americans, this agreement has failed. We cannot ignore the huge trade deficits, the lost manufacturing jobs, the businesses that have closed or moved because of incentives. The U.S. government has certified that at least 700,000 Americans have lost their jobs due to changing trade flows resulting from NAFTA.
The Trump administration also is targeting the weekly enforced labor, environmental, and manufacturing rules that for 23 years have drawn American assembly plants to Mexico. The average 2016 wage in Mexico was $2.10. Many of the workers on the assembly lines don't make enough to purchase the vehicles they produce. The U.S. Trade Representative's office said since NAFTA was implemented in 1994, the U.S. bilateral goods trade balance with Mexico has gone from a $1.3 billion surplus to a $64 billion deficit in 2016.
Mexico comes to this negotiation to play a constructive and proactive role, with a commitment to advance our interests and goals without risking what we have achieved as a region.
For the U.S. government, NAFTA goes beyond goods and services. The U.S. seeks balance. Mexico wants immigration issues addressed while leaving trade policy alone. Both countries know the clock is ticking as major elections loom in 2018.
Hi, everybody.
Canada's counterpart says her country approaches trade as free and fair and not a zero-sum game.
Canada doesn't view trade surpluses or deficits as a primary measure of whether a trading relationship works. Nonetheless, it's probably worth pointing out today that our trade with the U.S. is balanced and mutually beneficial.
The U.S. has a $11 billion trade deficit with Canada, despite the two countries exchanging $635.1 billion of products in 2016.
We are the biggest client of the United States. Canada buys more from the U.S. than China, the UK, and Japan combined. Trade is about people. It's about creating the best possible conditions for jobs, for growth, and for prosperity.
While Trump touts America first, farmers and ranchers have benefited from NAFTA. 1 out of 10 planted U.S. acres end up feeding people in Canada and Mexico. The two countries are the top destinations for domestic corn, soybeans, pork, beef, dairy, and poultry. Former Secretary of Agriculture Tom Vilsack says the trade deal is more than just manufacturing, but agricultural goods, including products originating in the parlor. Vilsack, now the head of the U.S. Dairy Export Council, says fixing trade isn't as easy as the president makes it sound.
A very complicated negotiation within dairy, and then you have to put dairy within agriculture. And the fact that the corn and soybean folks are anxious to maintain what we have benefited from NAFTA. The tomato growers in Florida have a different view of NAFTA and have a different view of Mexico than we do in dairy.
Vilsack adds, as the U.S. pulled out of the Trans-Pacific Partnership, it missed an opportunity to gain leverage in future unilateral deals. And if the U.S. would walk away from NAFTA?
The challenge here would be for the president to get frustrated with the fact that there is not action and go back to where he was at the beginning of the administration, where he was suggesting that perhaps we should pull out of NAFTA. Now that would be a serious mistake.
For Market to Market, I'm Paul Yeager.